how are we able to cruise as often as we are? I think probably this is directed at me because I did do 6 cruises in 1 year last year. I want to break this down into 2 parts. One part is getting the time off of work is obviously a challenge, and the other part is cost. So getting the time off of work is going to really vary about your employment. Some people, like Mike, right now, you're sort of an on-call type position.
I am. It's casual auxiliary, so I find out my work the day before. I have to put a request in to get time off, and because we're short-staffed, that's usually denied. But I've only recently started working there, so I completely understand.
Yeah. And so at my work, I have some vacation time. We also have an option where we can work an additional half hour each day and then take 1 day off every 3 weeks. And so it's sort of a very slightly compressed work period. So I maximized that. And I also had carried forward about 4 vacation days from the previous year. So while I did manage 6 cruises in that 1 year, I couldn't do that every year by any means.
Yeah.
But it was sort of figuring it out and spacing it out so that, there were at least 3 weeks between each cruise, if not longer, so that I could put those extra days in there as well. So the time off of work is going to really be specific to you. But, you're going to want to look at your vacation and any other time off rules that you have and read them very carefully to understand how to best maximize your time. But that will vary by position. Yeah. So I think the more universal part of the question is how are we able to afford it? So there's several parts to this. Part of it is the vast majority of the cruises we took were in the low season. The easy way to understand high and low season is our school-age children in school. We went in January, February, and April for the 3 cruises you and I did at the beginning of 2016. That was half of the 6 right there. Those cruises were each 5 days long, so they weren't super long either. Each one was a week.
And the job that I had at that time, I had to book my vacation in October the year prior. So I'd have to communicate with Ray to say, okay, give me dates that you want to do these cruises. And thankfully, I was able to get the exact weeks that he wanted to take the cruise. And so that's how I was able to do it.
And part of picking those times was basically just doing a search on Carnival's website, and they naturally sort things by price. So I am happy being on any ship going anywhere, anytime. Yep. And that kind of flexibility helps a lot, because then you can let price be your determinant. If you don't have a lot of money for cruising, do searches with, pick all the months that will work for you. Pick the duration that you want, whatever. But don't necessarily pick a ship or a destination. And then just kind of look at, from the top, look by price. Yeah. And so then obviously you're going to go for the less expensive cruise. And so that kind of flexibility really pays off in terms of keeping the cost down. Having a variety of people you can cruise with is helpful. When I cruise with my family, I'm paying for whoever is in my family that I'm coming with, and that obviously can be a little expensive, and their schedules aren't as flexible, and their choices, they might have stronger feelings about where they go. They still enjoy being on a ship anytime, but they might advocate for, I want to go to Montego Bay or wherever on a particular cruise, and so I try to factor that in. When I took my mother on a cruise, I let her pick anywhere that Carnival sailed, and she picked Bermuda, which was towards the higher end of the cost spectrum. But that was part of the idea, is I didn't want her to choose just the cheapest thing, since it was going to be sort of a one-time deal. And it was supposed to be a special present. But that took a while to pay off as a result.
Yeah, but you always make payments before you cruise, right? You'll figure out from whoever wants to go with you, okay, this is what we're doing, this is when we're going to do it. And you start making payments right then and there. You put a little bit down each week or each month or whatever. And it brings the final payment down considerably less when you do come to making the complete payment.
Absolutely. That's another part of the price factor, and you make a really good point here. Yeah. Being Canadian, we have to deal with currency value fluctuations. Yeah. So if I see that the Canadian dollar is gaining in strength, therefore I need fewer Canadian dollars to buy an equal amount of American dollars, then that is an advantageous time for me to go and make a payment. Because then that'll go through at maybe 1.25% instead of 1.36%. And so that payment just got 11% cheaper if you look at it in that particular way. So if you book well in advance, you get the early saver program, and you can take advantage of price drops. and that can help as well. But it also gives you time to only make your payments when the currency is hopefully more favorable. And so that's part of how I drive that. If I see in the news that, the US dollar has lost value, then I'll go and I'll make a $25, $50, $100 payment at that time because I know the currency conversion will be favorable for me. If I hear the opposite, that the Canadian dollar has recently tanked on a jobs report or something, then I know now is not the time to make a payment. And so I'll save my money until the time comes. So I give myself that additional flexibility. So that's more of a Canadian cruiser tip, but it's an important one because it can change the cost of your cruise by
considerably
10 to 15% or more, depending on how much the currency fluctuates. It's a bit of a gamble, and that's why making several payments kind of amortizes your risk over time. So those are some of the key parts of it. We also remember to try to factor in flight costs when making the determination, because if we save $100 by going out of Tampa instead of Miami, but Miami's a $200 cheaper plane ticket, we're actually losing money on that. Yeah. So you got to factor in approximate plane prices as well if you really want to maximize those travel dollars. But that's sort of the key to how are you able to go as often as you are. If you have a variety of people you can travel with, when I travel with Mike, I only have to pay for myself. Yeah. And so that obviously helps me. And then, I'll travel with Sam and only pay for myself. And so I'm not, draining the bank account that way. And as well, having a variety of traveling companions means there are more dates available and you let price drive where you go. You keep an open mind and say, I'm going to have a good time wherever I go if I'm on any ship. Yeah. If that's your basis of operation, then let price drive everything else. You can go more often and you'll have a great time and you might end up in a fantastic surprise place you've never been before. Yeah, but just make sure that when you do book your cruise, but do some research, not only about the cruise itself, but also about the ports that it's going to. Find out what is available at the port. Are you going to an industrial port where there's only little strip malls around the port area? Or other activities that you can do. So if you're going to, say, Grand Turk, then there's a beach right next to the pier. You can just go to that. You don't necessarily have to book a paid excursion. No. And so, if you can kind of understand which ports you can do that at and which you don't. One thing I like to do when I'm in a port, and this really, I think, is a big part of keeping costs down, I call it the 2 feet in a heartbeat approach, where I get off the ship and I walk around. I might download a little map onto my phone or something, a little screenshot of Google Earth or something. But I'll just walk around and see what I can find. And I'll go with really low expectations. And so if I find a free beach, I'm going to be super excited about that. Or if I find a great restaurant or great store or performance or whatever going on, I'm just happy if I can go and maybe I need mouthwash because I ran out. I'm just happy if I can find a grocery store and get some mouthwash, and everything else is a bonus on top of that. Mm-hmm. And that can be really a great way to discover an area. Yeah. And also, we're here as a resource. We've got videos. We're active on cruisecritic.com. You can email us. You can contact us through Twitter and a variety of other ways. If it's somewhere we've been before, we may or may not have advice for you. And it might be like Freeport, which is simple. Like if you say, I'm going to Freeport, I would say, don't expect to find things at the port. No. It's industrial. There's a couple of huts that'll try to sell you t-shirts. There's nothing else there. So if you want to go to Freeport, either plan to basically stay on the ship or book a Carnival excursion. And we've had some issues where the cab, security had to chase away a gypsy cab when we were in Freeport. So, those sorts of things. We're a resource, and so if we've been there, we're happy to help answer any questions that we can. Cruise Critic and other places are fantastic resources for finding out about what's at a port. But don't necessarily completely knock off the possibility of just going and doing things there. I would say don't do anything that has transportation involved because you might not get back to the ship in time. Yeah. But we went to St. Thomas and there's the tram that we were able to walk to and take. Mm-hmm. There was the butterfly thing, which I wasn't that into, but I know Mindy really enjoyed. And those are just things we saw. When we're in Cozumel, we might just go to the Hard Rock Cafe and stuff that's local. Yeah. There's Tacos del Sol in Ensenada. There's a lot of local things. When I was in Mazatlan, I was on a Carnival excursion to El Cid, and then a guy on the beach with a boat said, hey, you want a parasail for $40? And that is easily one of the best experiences of my life. So stay open to those things, but if it's anything that's going to take you far away from where you are, I think that's where the doubt really should enter your mind, because you might not get back in time and that ship will not wait for you. Yes. If it's not a Carnival excursion. If it's not a Carnival excursion, they will not wait. If it is, they will wait for you.